Do not disturb. Well, let us know when you're live. Thank you very much. Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Penny. So with that, at 1 o'clock, I'll declare the meeting open and welcome the council members and members of the public watching on the live stream and members of the public that are here to visit with us today. Welcome to everybody. Also on the screen today, we have Councillor Baird zooming in. Councillor Phelps will be either appearing here or up there, but we'll probably have that defined for the next 5 minutes. And I will pass over to Francois, please, for the thank you.
Kia ora, Helen. Whakataka hau ki te uru, whakataka hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā tāutau ki tonga. Ahi aki ana te atukura, ahi teo, e hoka, e horu, ati hia mau.
Thank you very much. Right, so apologies, we have no apologies. So we'll move on to the declarations of interest. Local Authorities Members Interest Act number 68, everything is online and Teams for you to view and keep updated. Right, urgent items not on the agenda. I'd like to remove a second place for the resolution that is in accordance with in accordance with section 46A, 7 of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act of Waima, and under section 9.12 of Council's adopted standing orders, the following item be added as an urgent item not on the agenda for Council's consideration due to the following: long-term plan amendment estimated costs. The reason the item is not on the agenda is the need for this agenda item arose after the agenda was released. The issues arise from elected members requesting to consider selling the Paki Waitara building outside the long-term plan process. And the reason why the discussion of the item cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting is to enable Council to advise the consultant and audit as soon as possible. So can I please have a mover and a seconder on that resolution, please? Councillor Casson, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
Excuse me, Elish, have we got a public section for speaking today?
No, because that comes through me and I need notification 2 weeks before the council meeting.
Yes, I did notify you and I've notified you twice that I need to speak, but I didn't get any response.
I got that last week and I do believe I did respond to you last week when that came through.
I got no response, Mia. I need to speak now.
I'm sorry, but it's not a public part of the meeting and we haven't got it logged into being as such.
So you've taken away our rights to speak in the public forum?
We haven't taken anybody's rights away. It is promoted that it needs to come through you at least 2 weeks prior for advisement. And we have got a very tight agenda today, so my apologies for that. But if you want to request that you speak at the next meeting, I can allocate some time for that.
It's really important to speak today because it's regarding the Paki Waitara and it's regarding our pioneer heritage at the museum. And I've spoken to you about changing long-term plans without going out to special consultation before.
The long-term plan is being dealt with next year, where the consultation, an appropriate consultation will be happening. Yes. So that is next year, not this year, because the long-term plan got put back 1 year, as have other councils around the country.
We realise that, but there have been projects gone on, forced on, which have been changed. The long-term plan from 21 to 31 was changed without special consultation. That is exactly why last year when I came, I spoke to you, and I'm going to leave for you today, before I head away, the Local Government Act and the requirements for the long-term plan, and if you make a change to the long-term plan, which you have between 21 and 21 till now, several times, there has been no special.
If you would like to leave us with the information,
I will pass it on.
We'll review that, and if you would like to speak at the next council meeting,
yes,
if you can advise me at least with that 2 weeks notice and with an indication of the content of what you wish to speak to, when the
That's a
meeting gets
special
locked in.
consultation procedure too, which
That's fine, we will know that.
the council have been negligent in
That's,
carrying out.
that's fine, I appreciate that. We will review that information, and if you want to speak at the next council meeting, let me know as to the content of what you want to speak about, and we will allocate some time.
I sent you the email that was regarding our heritage, our Westland heritage, our pioneer heritage.
I'm sorry,
Very important.
you did send me an email, but you weren't requesting, you were advising me of the heritage. So please make your communications crystal clear as to whether you're wanting a response from me, because I get a lot of emails every day, as to whether you are making a statement or you are wanting information.
I asked for at least 5 to 7 minutes speaking time in public at this meeting.
Right, that's fine. If you want to.
Thank you, you've declined us.
I will acknowledge that for the next meeting if that's what you so wish. Thank you for that.
No, there's no thanking us. You've done wrong.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, we are in a council meeting and this is not acceptable. I'm sorry, Captain Dow, this is not
But
acceptable.
I'm 90 years old and
I'm
at
well
this
aware of
time
how old
I've
you are,
been
sir.
refused to speak on our council.
I'm sorry, sir, but it's not the first time and we are following our rules. If you want to speak, I'm sorry, this will not carry on. Make an appointment and come and speak to us.
Pay rates when
Excuse
you're
me,
not.
thank you very much. Would you not please interrupt the meeting? Go through the correct channels, please, you know what they are. Excuse me.
Channels.
Right, if we can move on, please. So the mover and seconder was councillor Jensen and councillor Burden for that resolution. Thank you very much, and that was carried. Right, minutes of meetings. The ordinary council meeting minutes of the 18th of April. And the extraordinary council meeting minutes of the 15th. Sorry, what's that? Councillor Fox is there. Good afternoon, Councillor Fox.
Secondly, at the previous open council meeting, we talked about the proposed legislative position, which is an open meeting, and the report for this meeting is in confidential, and I believe it should be in the open meeting, without reference to amounts and personnel, but the discussion ought to be in the interests of openness, ought to be in this meeting.
If we can have noted that, if we can progress through this part, because at the moment we're covering off meeting minutes, etc., not actually the content of the meeting.
Well, there's no other place to raise content of the agenda.
Actually, there is, and we will bring that up later. We will get through the introductory parts of the meeting with the minutes, passing of the minutes, etc., and the action list, and then we will have that for a quick discussion after that. So getting back to the minutes of meetings, please, number 5, ordinary council meeting minutes of 18th of April and the extraordinary council meeting minutes of the 15th of May. There is an amendment to be made to the figures on that point. On the document that you have all had regarding point 18, public toilets, it was moved Councillor Neil and seconded Councillor Davidson to resolve that council reinstate the funding for the Drummond Hall and the Grey Power toilets. It should be reading the Grey Power being $5,000 plus GST. Reinstate the funding for the Grey Power toilets at $5,000 plus GST should have been included on that document. So that is an amendment that is also going to be covered in this resolution. So the resolution is that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 18th of April 2024 and the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 15th of May 2024 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meetings, including the amendment to that piece of regarding public toilets, point 18. So do I have a move and a second of that, please? Councillor Gillette, Councillor Casson, thank you very much. All in favour? Against? Carried, and the chair approves that the digital signature be added to the confirmed council meeting minutes of 18th of April and the 15th of May, including the amendment of that figure. Thank you very much. Committee minutes to be received. The Risk and Assurance Committee meeting minutes of 8th of February. This is a receiving, not an approving. And I need a mover and a second, please, so we may resolve that the minutes of the Risk and Assurance Committee meeting held on 8th of February 2024 be received. Councillor Neil, Councillor Burden, thank you very much. All in favour? Carries, thank you. Right, moving on to point 6, the action list. Simon, if you can please connect to the podium.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good afternoon, councillors. 2 action items on the action list. I do have a guest to talk to the first point, which is our contractor, Elliott Sinclair, who is doing a lot of the assessment work for both Paki Waitara and this building that we reside in today. So I would like to hand over to Elliott Sinclair to give councillors an update in terms of the technical work that's been undertaken, including the geotech works required. So, Elliott, Travis, would you like to join us, please? And you can put your video on, we appreciate it.
Yep. Good afternoon. Just giving a short update on progress. So we've spent a couple of days working through the 2 buildings, in particular the one you're in, to go through and identify or confirm the structure and the construction and parts of the building that were unknown given the lack of existing information on the building. So that's been completed. During that time we also did a couple of days worth of site-specific geotechnical testing. So CPT testing and hand augers and scalers. So that work's completed now as well. And for the last couple of weeks, our geotechnical engineers have been processing that geotechnical data. They've done the liquefaction analysis, that's completed. They're now working through some settlement analysis, looking at both the everyday loading on the building and performance of the foundations under static conditions. And also the performance under dynamic, so earthquake shaking. The static condition test is really just to provide a comparison or a baseline to compare the seismic one to. And in conjunction with that, we're working through the structural analysis of the building as well. So first part of that has been calculating the structural loads, both the everyday gravity and live loading on the building. And also the lateral loading from earthquake as well. And we're now constructing our analysis models, which we're probably 80% of the way through. And next step for us is to use those structural analysis models to gain a really good understanding of the structural performance of the building in an earthquake. And then we'll calibrate that with the site-specific geotechnical information to establish the overall performance of the building and seismic rating, percentage MBS, which it's regularly known as. And then following that, we'll look at what parts of the building may or may not require seismic strengthening work, and prepare a concept which will then be used to update the cost plan for the building. So we've been focusing mainly on the council building, and geotech's well advanced on the Paki Waitara as well. Structural's a little bit behind that, but not too far. So that's
the expectation. These reports should be available. Well, there's obviously quite a bit of work still to do, but June is the target to have them completed. Whether they'll be available for a council meeting, we'll have to work with Travis and close with it. But the intention is to try and make it available for the next council meeting in terms of a full technical review.
Question, Travis.
Yep.
Helen Lashley, Mayor of Westland. The seismic drilling that was done on the exterior ground from the building.
Yeah.
Are you anticipating drilling holes on the floor of the building to actually get a detail of the sample of the foundations?
Currently, the outside of the building, we're looking at the overall soil profile. We do one of the aspects of the building that we need to have a really close look at, both geotechnically and structurally, is the main columns in the building carry on down below the ground floor for another 2.5 meters to some big foundation pads that bear on a more firmer sand layer at depth. And but it's the gap between the top of those foundations and the ground floor slab, where the columns are buried in the earth, and it's the fragility of those columns we need to look at quite closely. So we may, depending on the outcome of the analysis, as part of any strengthening work that may be required, we might have to come back and look at the quality of the compaction of the fill that sits between the pads and the underside of the ground floor slab. Now that we should be able to do that largely from the exterior of the building.
Would that not surely be sort of the first line of work done? Because I mean, bearing in mind this was originally a 2-story building that had a 3rd floor put on, so the foundations were built to support 2-story, predominantly thick wall concrete building. So I would have thought that would have been the first work that would have been assessed before we sort of looked at the structure, because if the foundations aren't up to standard.
No, well, the loading in the foundation is driven by the structure, and it's the building from an everyday statics point of view, for all intents and purposes, is performed fine. It's when you give it a really good shake and turn the ground below it to a liquefied state, it's what's going to happen, and the performance of that is largely dictated by what's happening below the foundation, so 2.5 meters depth plus.
Councillor Davidson here. I have a question. You've done 80% testing. Have you got any idea the state of the buildings?
Well, the structural analysis will help confirm that. From a geotechnical perspective, the liquefaction, which is really the part that impacts on buildings, the liquefaction performance of the site is better than what I would have expected. There's some quite bad parts in Hokitika, but this site is better than most. I think the main thing we're going to be looking quite closely at is the liquefiable layer is not very thick, but the thickness varies along the length of the building. Our current numbers would provide an indication of somewhere between 75 and 100 mils of differential settlement could occur across the length of the building under a significant earthquake, and that is not enough to ring alarm bells in my mind at this point in terms of that level of differential shouldn't create a life safety issue with the building. It's not going to be enough to collapse the building, for example. But we do need to. That's where we're at the moment. We've got to close out our structural analysis, and that'll feed back in, and we'll update the geotech analysis with the final structural loading once that structural analysis is complete. So, but that's my I guess preliminary thoughts on the ground.
Are you referring to which site are you referring to? Both sites?
The council building site.
Thank you.
So are you saying that with liquefaction not being solid right through the whole base, that would indicate that this is not built on an old riverbed?
No, it's built on what's that? Alluvial sea, like sand, basically. And there are some bands within the top 10 meters which liquefy.
Magnitude 8.2 through to a 9, that is significant shaking, which will go deeper than that as far as the liquid that it will bring up to the surface, as it did in Christchurch with a lesser magnitude. I was in Christchurch earthquake and saw the consequences of the ground movement there, and looking
Yes.
at transferring that through to here, the water will come up with the
Yes,
magnitude.
it will.
we're
Yep.
talking.
Yeah, because it's largely sand and gravels. Any excess pore water, well, excess pore pressure will push the water up, and that's what creates the liquefied state of the soil. Is the loss of shear strength in the soil as the water migrates up. But as that comes up, we're predicting 75 to 100 mils of differential settlement across the building, and it's that settlement that results in damage in the building. And it's the pattern of how that differential settlement occurs that determines the extent of damage that will be reflected up through the building. So based on where we're at now, and we haven't completed our structural analysis, but as I said before, 75 to 100 mils of differential spread relatively linearly across the length of the building shouldn't put the building in a stress state where it is subject to local or global collapse.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Travis?
Yes, Tom.
Through your worship, regarding the testing on Paki Waitara building.
Yeah.
Do you have the WSP seismic report for 2016?
Yes, I do. They didn't do ground testing. They did more of a desktop analysis and looked at more of the regional geology.
Are you aware that in your testing of that site, there was an underground creek beneath that building?
I'd have to go back and look at the results, but we certainly haven't struck. It's the pile, the foundations on the majority of that building are quite robust. They're big blocks of concrete that extend down to the firmer layers at 2 to 2.5 meters depth. So it's really for that building, it's the original part of the building, which might be 20 to 25% of the floor area, is not piled. It's shallow ground bearing beams. So what we'll be looking at closely on that building is what is likely to be the differential performance of those foundations. So you have a big earthquake and you get a liquefied state in the soil below. So you've got the piled foundation section should perform relatively rigidly, and it's how far how the older section of the building on shallow foundation is going to settle relative to the piled section, and whether that's going to translate into any damaging structural issues with the building at that interface.
Could I suggest you have a look at the old maps of
Yep.
and you'll see that there's a creek that runs from Fitzherbert Street straight through the guts of that side.
Yep.
And that old creek is still there. Because when my brother had the garage across the road from it, in the pit, the garage used to flood from the creek.
Right.
So the creek is very much still active on the side.
Yeah. Well, we'll certainly look at that.
There's a swimming pool.
So expected to report back to us, can we be quite confident that we'll see something for the June meeting?
We're working really hard on wrapping the council building analysis and strengthening concept up for the end of June. The Paki Waitara one might extend a little bit beyond that.
Extended a little bit past that, or what are we talking time frame there?
July.
All right, well, Simon, if you want to keep
Yeah, so
finger on the
obviously,
pulse there with that, with the timeframes. Yeah.
yeah, so obviously we've been pushing that, and they've been working hard with us in terms of coming up with a solution and a final report. Obviously, this is a collation of a lot of history, and this is probably the most in-depth report that's been done on this building and on Paki Waitara following the work that Travis and his team are doing. So it'll put anything to rest in terms of a final outcome. So obviously for council decision in terms of this building and its future, we can carry on down the path as per the annual plan submission process. But once we get some more detail, we can always revisit the costings. But pretty we had some buffer in the costings to allow for any additional earthquake strengthening. Whether that aligns to Travis's numbers, determine. The fact that we're not doing anything with Paki Waitara, potentially at the moment, in terms of structural elements, is a report coming later where, I suppose, not a real impact on future works for us, but obviously it's a decision for council in terms of its future for the building itself.
Right, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us for the meeting.
No problem. Thank you.
Travis will be in the room when the reports are available for next council meeting.
Right, good. Thank you, Travis, for that. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you, Travis. The second item on the action list is, and we'll keep it as a standing action item, is the Hokitika Gorge Bridge update. The elements there, in terms of the comments, is still valid. The engineer's done all the analysis work. Looking to get the construction drawings and tenders out mid-July, and for a target completion date at the end of February 25. Any questions on that?
That's okay, son.
Your worship, Simon, I suspect you understand my disappointment and probably the disappointment of the community around the end of February 2025, which is also the end of the next summer season. My understanding was the conversation was it was going to be worked towards being ready for this summer season, and at risk of sounding like Patrick, Rome wasn't built in a day, but this is the first update we've heard of this, and I can understand the tourism industry, which our region and district thrive off, are not happy with this update. Myself.
Obviously, this is work we've contracted to our Department of Conservation in terms of their works. We can see if we can pull it forward, working with them to find out how we can bring anything forward in this space. But they did commit to summer having it completed, and obviously February is still in the summer program.
It's possibly a bit of a push.
Yeah, and if I remember properly from those discussions, we were given the actual assurance that this would be up and going and they were going to be onto it immediately. So I too am actually grossly concerned that we've gone from ready for this next season out to the other side potentially. And we did give that assurance to the community too, that this would be open for business for this next season. So I'm not too sure quite where the time delay's gone, because Doc did say they were busy, but they did say they had an engineer that specialises in this that could get that done. And I actually thought they were taking the lead on this, so that would include tendering. So are they taking the lead or not?
They are taking the lead in terms of the project and the project deliverables, and then the time frame that goes with that. They have the resources that they have, and at the end of the day, they're working to deliver on those. We'll have to go back and see if there's any slack in terms of the program, but they're committing to February 25 at this stage.
Is the bridge in any risk with the fact that they are facing budget cuts themselves? Has that got any chance of impacting?
No, this is, bear in mind, this is a TIF funded project, if you recall.
I mean, as far as them having the people on the ground to do the engineering work and do every other part of that?
They haven't alerted to us that there's any change in resourcing levels at all. So the engineer to design is still part of the Hokitika community team, so he's actually working through that.
Is it worth inviting Owen and members of his team to present an update to us next month?
I think so. Yeah, Councillor Neil.
I think one of the big things here is to be promoting that it's still a fantastic track. Yeah, you don't do the loop, but it's still an amazing walk, and really, yeah, is still well worth doing, we just need to be pushing that a bit further.
Oh, without a doubt, I hardly agree with that, and that's how we got past this last time, when it was 1 minute, it was, well, that's the end of that, and actually, no, it's not, it's still been a good tourism season based around the port and the access to it. But the worst thing is that there were assurances made, on the bridge and its opening time, and a particular reliance on that, so, again, we've got to make sure the narration that goes out is very solid, and it combats those issues that potentially will arise out of dissatisfaction.
Through your worship, that, yeah, it is disappointing because the expectation was it was going to be in the summer, but the sky hasn't fallen, and you know, and the tourists are still flocking there, and we're still enjoying the experience, and so it's just, you know, it's in progress, and I think that's, yeah, as well as we can expect.
I think what we don't want to see is it slip out from that perceived date of finish to later again. Because I think the other issue we've got up there is actually car park size, not managing the amount of buses and camper vans and cars that are up there. So, you know, the pressure that that's creating is another situation on its own. He's keeping very mum on that, isn't he? Right, so is there any further, Councillor Gillette?
Just through your worship, Simon, in terms of the overall action list, do you think it's still appropriate that we have the council buildings on that list in light of proposed building changes and the general move from the council to dispose of Paki Waitara? Maybe it's work that can be carried out, but doesn't actually need to be reported on the action list.
This is primarily to do the elements, so it's really up to council if they would still like to keep it on the list. I think I'm just keeping council briefed on all the activities.
It's just my opinion, I don't know how the other councils feel about it. The other thing I'd like to have is added is the museum put on the action list. I know we're talking about it later, but I think it would be a good opportunity to focus on that project.
I think because it's on the agenda for latest discussion, let's have the discussion that's there, and then if that's a requirement of council following that, we'll put it on the action list. We need to have that discussion and then look at where we place that from there.
Yeah, just, you know, it's an action list for staff to follow up on. It's not a hot topics list. So if the council would like reports, that's all they do.
Or maybe don't too. See if it's relevant in that discussion. I kind of think it might be.
Councillor Davidson.
Yeah, just back onto the Hakatiki Gorge
Sorry.
progress. I think that it's really good to, you know, thank the stock for progressing so far to this stage. Doing a really good job. At the same time, certainly check and see if we can get it open up early summer, and it'd be really good. But looks like things are going really well out there.
Yeah, obviously they've tied up with the engineering design work. Yeah. That takes up most of the time. Yeah. So if the tender goes out, and it's pretty straightforward, yeah, depending on who the tenderer is and who wins the work. It could be done quicker, we just don't know at this stage.
Yeah, good teamwork.
Thank you for that, Simon. There's no further questions on either of those. All right, so can I have a move from a seconder, please, resolve that the updated action list from the chief executive be received? Move from seconder, please. Councillor Buda, can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Davidson, thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Donna. Patrick. Right, presentations. We move on to the Community Housing Trust and welcome William to their table, please. Yes, welcome, and the floor is all yours.
Tuatahi kami e nau ka kia huitira na tira ka le parakura hi. Tira mai tēnei o nā hui, o tira kia nā mana whenua. Kia koutou katoa nā mema o te kaunihira, o tira te rangatira tuatahi I have got a presentation here, but I'm actually just here to answer questions and to highlight a few things. This kaupapa is dear to me because, one, it means that there are families out there that can have a home. We know that housing is an issue not just for our community but for everyone across New Zealand. And I think, I've just to give you some background, I've been working with Develop West Coast for the last maybe 6 months, trying to find solutions to forward residential development along the West Coast. And it's fraught with its many issues, and the issues are probably well known to everyone. But we do know that there's now a political environment where government is looking at efficiencies. A review of climate water. Chris Bishop has announced a few things and indicated and I think it's timely that I'm here today because he's indicated that perhaps central government funding could be going to community housing providers, because I think he probably knows they are probably more efficient because they are charitable. So there is not the commercial element in the climate water, for example, in other entities. So purpose for my being here today is to seek help, seek support, and hopefully to establish a community housing provider, a trust, which will then cater for the West Coast, across the whole of the West Coast in the future. So I'd like to take some questions or anything of the sort about what's in this presentation, because I mean I can go through this. The Housing Community Trust essentially is a not-for-profit charitable organisation. There's a registration process where you become a provider. It can take up to 1 year. Some of the benefits are that you have greater control as a community to develop social housing, affordable housing. There's a whole spectrum along which you're able to help people get into homes. And essentially, there's different models all around New Zealand. One of the ones which I've looked at is the Queenstown Lake Districts Housing Community Trust, which has support from councils. They also have an inclusionary system which they have, which probably doesn't apply here. But I think the key thing for it is that if we have government, central government knows that local government's involved, I think in the future we'll have more money that can come directly to us to help people in homes. One other thing I'd like to highlight is that we know that you have pension homes and support our elderly. There are some hurdles in terms of when you become a provider, you could become eligible for new rental subsidies. The government's indicated they may not look at that past 2025, but I think there may be an argument to support some of those subsidies. So there are some hurdles, but I think this housing trust, which I think would be an answer to help a lot of different people within our community. And we know it's getting tighter. The economic environment is not as good as it has been. Potentially in a recession, and I think this is a way to help people within Westland and potentially get more houses in all on the West Coast. So that's why I'm here. I'm here for support. I'm here potentially, if the council can support this in any way, land, other resources. Happy to have questions about what I've done a lot of research on it. This was just to say what it is, but there's a lot of answers that I have that are not in here. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions from the room? Councillor Goulding.
Leadership. So the rental subsidy scheme that currently still exists, is there a certain scale or threshold you have to reach before you can access that fund?
Yeah, without getting too much detail, well, we can get into the detail. Typically the fund attracts to new homes that are being built, so they only really attract to new ones. There is an exemption that can be made by the housing minister or the associate housing minister. The rental subsidy is actually really, really beneficial because it allows you to recoup market rent and then still have people who can't afford to have a lower rent. So there are some hurdles. I'm not saying it was going to be easy, but I think there might be some arguments there to take to the minister, take to government, so that we could, you as the council, or as part of the I would say one of the trustees, representatives, one of the trustees of the trust would then take to the government to say, we think we need this here because there is no, just to answer the question, there is no housing provider, community housing provider on the West Coast operating as it is. No one's here.
Yeah.
No one's here. So, have I answered your question?
Not really, but
Ask me again.
I thought there had to be a certain scale before the
My
government treated, effectively the government saw you as a serious provider and that would fund the rental subsidy.
My understanding is no, although I do have access to more information about the rental subsidy. I mean, one of my approaches would have been for the council, again, this would be getting into detail again, to transfer some of your assets so that you did have scale. And therefore you did have the money, because we know that could be a burden for the council going forward with all of the pensioner housing, lower cost housing that you have. Because you don't get it. You have to be.
No, our ownership model excludes that, which is problematic.
Correct. Which could be a solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're well aware of that.
Ongoing.
There's no provider on the coast yet.
Yet, well, it could be, and you could be involved in it.
I think as far as Wellington goes and any perceived restrictions funding wise, until we know, I mean, the budget's today, but until we get that footprint of where we're headed with that, it makes it difficult. But I still also think, and I mean, you and I have had quite a few discussions around this, I still think putting a proposal or project together that we can back ourselves on is the way to go, because Coast is unique in its existence, and the government does regard us a little bit to one side to how they regard the cities. And I think if we've got a proposal that potentially involves Greymouth for starters, and then into Buller, because I know at the moment Buller is sort of not embracing the concept as much. You know, to me, never say never. Let's give it a shot and see where we can go with this and see if we can create something, because we do have a housing problem. We do have a problem for providing pensioner type housing as well as low income housing. And our population has just been released from censuses that, you know, it is going up. So we've got to actually look at this across the whole broad spectrum. And I think a housing trust is probably potentially, because I, like you, have had discussions with other councils that have gone to this model and it's been working exceptionally well. So we've got to look at what model's going to work best for us too with the stock that we've got. Because it's not just owning it, it's actually how you maintain it and how you develop it from there, which is another piece of the work. Councillor Hesson.
Paddy, thanks for the update there. I guess prefacing what comes next, where do you see this going, and to achieve the scale we need all three coast councils or more?
I think it's going to be a domino effect. I think if you have one council that has buy-in, and there is a successful, even if it's a smaller development, then I think that you'll get buy-in from the rest of them. So it really depends who wants to put their hand up and make the first move. But one of the things I haven't got in here, which has just happened recently, is that I've been working with Climate Order, and they, we know Hoffman Street and Dolly Street are going to be redeveloped. They've indicated that they will provide some of those homes which could be refurbished. I mean, I've done an assessment on those, but I mean, if we had land, we could effectively have a house moved, refurbishment, probably at 150,000. And then you could have some low-cost rental, and that could be very quickly. They're wanting these houses moved by July. So I'm out there looking for land. Anyone's got land, anyone get me? I'm looking for land right now because, yes, there are older homes, and some people may not be interested, but a full refurb on some of these houses with really good bones, you've got another 10, 20 years probably easy. Life cycle on those homes, and you've got a low-cost housing for a family of 2, 3, 4 that you don't have. So I'll just throw that out there because that's a new development that and again, if that's successful, then there'll be potentially another pipeline of other houses that could be provided. So to answer your question, do I need all of them? No, I think I just need one leader, and then add other people in as they see the success of it. And it could be at a fairly low cost. To just get 1 or 2 houses off the cap, and then start discussions with the ministers about what's happening with their proposal. It's not going to be, I think the first one could be quick, but to develop the full strategy and have central government then trust that provider, is probably going to be at least a year or so, probably more in the making. So this is not a short-term, quick fix. This requires a commitment. There's some documentation here about Queenstown Lakes District. They have millions of dollars of projects now. They're providing affordable housing for people who, if you ask me, it's now getting to, it's not low income, it's even middle income are very hard to get homes. Their structure with the leasehold interest, the value of the home being the purchase price, is a pretty good model just to get people in a home, and you get stability. There's so many benefits to having a home. So, I know I've gone off a little bit, but yeah, I think we just need someone to put their hand up and say, hey, we can commit, let's start this. And I think there needs to be a long-term vision, strategic vision of how this can be used in the future.
Sorry, supplementary question. Jamie can go next. The organisation who's funded the work you're currently doing, where do they sit on this, and are they going further than funding the work you're doing now?
So the reason why I'm in this position is because I was sitting on the housing forum, and then I said, well, you probably need someone dedicated to try and push this. And they said, what do you do? I said, well. So then I put my hand up. I effectively worked one day, sometimes less, a week, to forward this proposal. They're committed to getting housing. I mean, I'm not only just doing this, but I'm also trying to work with developers and seeing opportunities for them. They're committed, so Development West Coast employs me to do this part of my job, and they're committed to it. I'm committed to sign up for the whole year. It's my contract at the moment, so whether it goes past that will depend on what happens, how successful it is.
Councillor Neil, that BWC are doing that, I think it's fantastic. I really like the whole idea of it. A couple of questions. With the capital funding sources grant that you've got, that's 38.5 million of inclusionary funding.
Yeah, this is Queenstown Lakes District.
Yeah, so
we won't have
that. Yeah, and it's quite a sizable proportion that we won't have.
Yeah, I think for me, I just show that as an example, but I mean, what will happen, I think, is that you need to be someone who says something and does something, and then once you've proven capability, then we can access, well, I think the trust should be able to access central government funding. So all the money that's going, I mean, Chris Bishop, sorry, who's the housing minister, has already indicated that the inefficiency of the prime water, I've noted them. He's got a report, and he's already mentioned that potential funding will go to people like Emerge, other housing providers, because we know they're charity. We know that they should probably get more bang for their buck, and we don't have anyone here. So there could be, we could lose the opportunity if we don't move, really. Yeah. So I take it we won't get the inclusionary. I mean, the reason why there's so much money in Queenstown districts is because they have provisions which say that if you're a developer, you have to allocate land or money, percentage, for this housing. We don't have that yet. Do I think we still should do it? Yeah, I do, because I think there could be opportunities we will miss if we don't have a local provider, because there's no provider at the moment.
And even without the accommodation supplements, the figures would still stack up on an ongoing basis, managing that.
Yeah, it's going to be based on a project-by-project basis. Like if we get 3 houses from Climate Water, it takes 150 to refurb. Someone gives me some land, bang. I think we've just got to start. We've got to start, and unless I can't start without assets. It's just the housing. I've already spoken to HUD, who look at the application to become a housing provider. They say, well, you need a strategic plan based on your assets. I can't have a strategic plan if I don't have assets. So, it's a circular argument here. I don't have assets, but then they have economies of scale, and I don't have anything at the moment. But I do know that if we moved on this, we would be then providing, even if there's one family, 2 families to start off with either a low-cost rental or it could be an affordable house. And I think it's going to be good for the West Coast, right? You know, because, like I said, I think it's not low income, it's now moving to middle income that are struggling to, I mean, probably already hear that in July they're going to change the lending requirements. You know, there's a lot of economic push to prevent families from having stability of a home. And we know, like I said before, there's so much benefit from having your own home. Okay.
Paul, please. And I'll come to you, Brian.
Yeah.
Paul.
Through your worship. Yeah, look, good things come from small steps. And, you know, if there is an opportunity now with Climate Water, I would like to see if the management could come back to us with a report of possible land, what might be available, and including with Destination Western, just bring them back so we know by the next meeting. And, you know, so if it's a possibility we can vote quickly, we could.
Yep, no, I heartily agree with that, and it is a discussion that Simon and I have had been in looking at pockets of what's around and what restraints. A lot of the land we've got tied up with reserves, which takes a process to go through to unwind that, but it's a matter of actually recognising what is there. There'll be a little pearl somewhere that we can get into while we look at other pieces and what's got to be unravelled with them, so no, heartily agree with that one. So we'll put that on the note for the agenda next time to
Action.
as an action. Yep. Councillor Manero.
Yes, through the chair. Thanks for what you're doing, and South Western, mate, they've got no pledge housing, so come down our way.
Ryan wants to sign up.
Yeah, golf course, man.
They've got some land down there, Councillor Manero, that could be useful. No, I'm saying, would you like to defer that information?
Potentially not quite the right place for the population requirement, but it's something to bear in mind for once we get this up and going. Thank you for that, Murray. It's brilliant. It's been something I know that you're very passionate about. It's something that we do, and I want to see this discussion continue at the council table. So Simon's agreed to add it on to the action list.
I request that I meet with at least Simon after this and have further the discussion. I know you've got this council meeting about it, so
Yeah. Simon doesn't have a problem with that. Great. Thank you, Barry. That's really good. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. So can I please have a move and a second, please resolve that the presentation be received that Barry's just done. Thank you, Councillor Neil. Councillor Collette, all in favour? Great. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a great topic and it's a great initiative, and I'd like to see it grow some wheels, but we need to look at how we can contribute and what that looks like. But that'll be next month. We'll have that report back here. So thank you, Paul, for requesting that. Staff reports, the Chief Executive's quarterly report. Simon, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's quite a few things obviously in this report, and it covers a lot of topics. I just want to take the report as read, but focus on a few key topics. If that's okay, Your Worship. Obviously, the water conversation is still live and hasn't gone away after 3 or 4 years. So the government's repealed the previous government's water program, or acts. And there are further legislation still coming in mid-July and also at the end of the year. I won't go into the details of those various components, but they're in the report. I suppose what we need to focus on is how does this impact council as it is at the moment. So there is a clear mandate that we provide a water service delivery plan. The overarching purpose of that plan is for council, either individually or collectively, that's the way we end up going, to publicly demonstrate the intention and commitment to delivering water services in a way that is financially sustainable, meet all regulatory compliance standards for water network infrastructure and water quality, and unlocking housing growth, which is another aspect of that. So as the CEs of the West Coast, we have revisited some of the conversation we've had previously. This goes back to 2019-20 when we commissioned some work to look at what does water look like as a joint entity on the West Coast. Tonkin and Taylor did that work. So as CEs, we've reached out to them again to look at what does it need to update that information. There's been a lot of work, obviously, through the National Transition Unit, looking at all the various budgets and asset management plans and finances, etc., and also what systems everyone has that can fast track us to a quick review in terms of what does it look like as a standalone operation within the West Coast, what does it look like as a combined entity on the West Coast. We haven't reached any wider than that, and I think it's up to individual councils to make that decision on themselves. We have also included some of the people that were included in the National Transition Unit, knowing that they know the numbers extremely well to support us developing a review. So we're waiting for that scope of that work to be defined, and hopefully we'll get that tomorrow. And then I'll share it with my CE colleagues, see if they can wish to progress down this as an entity, as that discussion. We have to show due diligence to government. If we go back and say we haven't even tried or looked at anything, they can ask us to go and have another look. So to show that we've done that work. Just to highlight too that we have funding in the National Transition Unit, funding has been supplied to cover this work, so we won't be coming out of any ratepayers' pocket to do that work. It's already part of the Transition Unit funding. So we hope to get that underway in the very near future. Wastewater treatment plant, I know it's been a while, so Stantec have obviously provided a summary in the report. Just to highlight, there is a meeting, subcommittee meeting next week to progress, and also there's be a working group meeting soon after. They've been doing a lot of desktop exercise work, but also looking at talking with other stakeholders, i.e. Silverfern Farms and Western Milk, in terms of their impacts on our proposed future plans. We've also done some site evaluation work as well. So that'll be updated to the council subcommittee next week. A number of activities with small projects in the water space, as alluded to in the report. Regional service delivery for waste and recycling. So we're still progressing down the track of looking at a feasibility study for Grey and Westland at this stage. Paula have decided to park it. They've got, I suppose, reviewing what they want to do within their own mandate at the moment. Just to highlight, as a collective contract, it's still on the cards, but we would have a differential contract for South Westland carry on as they are. Highlight the work around Franz Joseph. Obviously, the Franz Joseph Joint Committee meeting met about a month ago now. Obviously, there's a lot of work to form that committee, number of actions that have come out of it. Haven't seen the final minutes of that, those discussions, but just to highlight the work we've done, and there's further technical reports have come back to show the avulsion through to the Tartary has increased. Obviously, council has fast-tracked some protection works for our ponds. We've done a workshop internally regarding all the assets that council currently own, that could be impacted down in Franz Joseph, and also had discussions around previous reports that have been done to council about the future of the wastewater treatment plant location and also what type of treatment it could be. So that is under evaluation as well. Just to highlight, we have put our hand up for fast tracking consenting if we decide to move the wastewater treatment plant from its current location, just to allow us to get through that quickly. And Carl's provided an update this morning in terms of the funding for EZTA. Obviously, it's been deferred or delayed. It might be waiting for decisions to be made. I'll take the rest of the report as read, Your Worship, and take any questions on any component of the report.
Question, please, Councillor Gurnett.
Through Your Worship, just so, can you just clarify this new water model? All I see it is another debt funding kind of regime which allows council to increase its debt in a more sustainable way, but effectively the can's still on our responsibility. Is that how I read it?
Under a CCO concept, so the governance of that CCO will be a joint partnership between the council, depending on how many councils join, for example. In terms of how that governance is structured, to be decided, but definitely council have input into the conversation in terms of what program of work is required for their district.
But there's no magic bullet in terms of assistance or funding from anywhere other than.
That's still a conversation that we need to have with Central Wellington. There is no funding model being provided. Obviously, separation is the most important thing in the CCO model, to allow other options in terms of funding.
It just seemed like it was driven by Auckland. It was something that they really wanted to do with the way their organisation was structured, and it's been assumed that it's the right model for everywhere else.
Yeah, I think if you look at what's happening in Entity A, I think it was originally proposed. Auckland is indicating they want to unwind from Northland and Waikato already, which obviously was part of the original concept, and mainly because of affordability.
One other question about the Custom House. There's some chip sealing that was done. Now, I'm involved with Heritage Okitika. I attend their meetings when I can. And the original lottery's application scope of work did not include chip sealing, but they've been invoiced for it. So why did the chip sealing get done, and who's actually going to cover the costs of that work?
Council, we met with Heritage Okitika middle last week. We walked through the various issues that they've highlighted. Everyone's agreed to wait until the final invoices to come in and actually look at how it's all divvied up. We've talked to, obviously, DIA in terms of the scope of work as well. The chip sealing obviously was to improve the aesthetics of the site in general. Yeah. Whilst it wasn't directly attributed to the Custom House finishing, it does detract by having poor chip sealing at the front. So we have, obviously there are other funding parties involved, not just Heritage Okitika, so we have Heritage West Coast, and they are part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, I mean, because the primary objective of that funding was actually to shift the building.
And it wasn't to shift, it was to fix the piling. So in terms of shifting, it came as a later the conversation. The other anomaly with Custom House comes down to the regional council design works for the protection works on Tranche 3, which is all the way from the bridge to the Sunset.
Yeah, which was the other issue that came up with us. Yeah. Chip sealing is why chip seal it when it would have to be relocated relatively in the short term anyway. So probably not a useful use of funds for that short period of time.
I can't comment.
Because I think, it might be shifted in a couple of years, so I'll catch up with them, but it is a point that's been.
So we've confirmed that we'll re-engage with them once the work's been completed. There are significant issues with obviously some aspects of the work. Obviously the piling is substandard. It's been acknowledged by part of their membership. To fix it properly, it needs obviously to be lifted and repiled correctly.
And what about the painting? When's that going to be completed?
The painting it, so to speak.
Councillor Kessler.
Three from me, Simon. First one, page 45, item 4.3. We've got a list of events, one being Wild Foods, which was now 2.5 months ago. That seems to be all we're getting the reporting on, and all we got last year was that it happened. Being in the conflicted position of having run it for 3 years, I was normally standing where you are today, 2 or 3 months on, given the full breakdown on dollars and tickets and every other aspect of the event. I think we just need to that back to us with a little more detail, given it's our most significant piece of activity.
I've already received requests for further information. I'm bringing that back for council meeting next month.
Thank you. Point 2 of 3, you mentioned around Buller District Council and the waste management contract. How severe do you see the impact of you pulling out of that as far as group buying power goes with two councils?
Minimal. Well, minimal because even though we're doing joint purchasing, we're going to look at separate contracts, so it'll be the same format, tendered at the same time, but managed by each council.
Thank you. And third of 3, Simon, item 4.2, page 53. Building consents, we normally sit around about 95% compliance. I know we've got to drop to 91.9% in real terms. It's probably only 1 or 2 additional consents outside of the compliance window there, but just something to note anyway. The other part of that question, we don't have that reporting on resource consents. We don't have that same, I guess, we just have a time frame compliance.
I can
resource
refer.
consents like that, and we get that included going forward.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
Just as Simon referred to, that I've requested the wild foods is on the agenda for June, which I have asked for financial reports for the past 4 years showing a full and complete breakdown of costs, both direct and indirect, information regarding volume of ticket sales versus giveaways, attendance numbers in the last 4 years, sponsorship deals, underwriting conditions and costs, etc. So there's a fairly full extensive report as far as information goes there, on Destination Westland to supply.
Yeah, so your worship, I have passed that request on. There's 2 ways to deliver it. Either Destination Westland do it as part of their SOI presentation to council, which is on the agenda for next month, or I do it, but I don't have the background in terms of all the various components of it. So they can do it as part of a formal report back to council with all those details.
I think that's what council will be wanting overall, as opposed to it being tucked into the statement of intent. It's a report on the
Yes, standalone,
yes,
an update.
on the wild food performance, because we've got to look at that as part of the decision making we've got on events, etc., and the management of that going forward. So it's information we require on its own.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
To your point, Simon, would be to have DW present it.
Yes, absolutely, yes. Thank you for that. Right, any further questions, Councillor Keane?
Your Worship, just a quick question. Is, with the Hokitika Spring Bridge, is the bridge been dismantled, or is it still standing?
Well, as part of the program of work, won't be dismantled until the other one is ready to be installed. So the contract will be built, dismantled.
Anything further for Simon? Thank you, Simon, very much for that. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Resolve the report be received. Councillor Manera, Councillor Neal, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Thanks, Donna. Reallocation of federal funding. Sorry, Lindley, not quite, you next. Oh, you're moving out of the way. Welcome, Jan. Jan, as Facilities and Properties Manager, will speak to this item. Thank you, Jan.
Your Worship, Mayor and Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this report. I'll take this report as read. I'll just touch on 1 or 2 items. There's a couple of movements and projects that's been progressing since the time of writing the report, so I'll just touch on that quickly. The Okuru and Haast detailed seismic assessment reports have been received, and we've sent that out to contractors to just have a look at and quote us on doing some intrusive work so we can get the upgrade specifications for that. To Mara and Canary civil defence containers have been delivered. We've only got Okeredo and Otura to do, which should be happening in the next 2 weeks. On the Ross Hall, the asbestos cladding, we've just been dealing with the building department on whether we require building consent or not. They've advised that we remove a portion of the cladding so that they can investigate the inside of the timber, and then they'll make a call from there. And then Franz Joseph, we have received the costs from the contractors following the geotech reports for the work that needs to be done on stabilizing the portion of the hall that's sagging down. So, yep, I'll take the rest of the report as read and open for questions.
The recommendation for the Fox Arboretum, and they have already started that, haven't they?
That's been completed, yes.
It's been completed, and they need a donation towards covering the costs.
There was an error made on the spreadsheets initially with the funding. The amount allocated to them was the 40,000 figure and not the 3,000 figure.
Yeah, then will be that was only.
No.
They always thought it was 40.
Correct, yes.
Questions, please. Councillor Collette, and then I'll come back to you, Paul. Sorry.
It was just a statement, really. There's it's a possible allegation of conflict in my quarter, which I refute, but in the interest of fairness, I will abstain from voting on this.
Which conflict is it cover the whole lot or
A particular part of it. I don't know whether it's available as an option in this report, it's voted or not. So, to take part, I would have to abstain.
Through your worship, regarding the unmentioned conflict, was our Park Hall. So the proposal to reallocate $56,000 to another community project, what does that mean?
We've got 5 projects within the Better Off funding, and we can only reallocate within the specific portfolio that what that one falls into. Appendix 2 has got the breakdown, so that falls under the community funding. So the idea is to reallocate that to Ariari Civil Defence and the Fox Arboretum project.
In fairness, I mean, this council used to have a very good working relationship with Whakatika Lions Club. And the results of that are there for everyone to see. All of a sudden, we seem to be coming down on the Lions Club, and they haven't had a very good time with it during the planning process, and now this. Wouldn't it be fairer for us to give them a chance to scramble together the funds to meet the shortfall? They've applied, as we're aware by email at least, as councillors, they've applied to Lions International for the funding to bridge this funding gap. Wouldn't it be in the interest of fairness to give them that chance?
We've got to be very clear here on the funding, because this piece of funding is not relative to the funding they've gone to International Lions, I believe. That is for the full upgrade of the building. It's got nothing to do, this is to do with,
It's the same, so.
Well, it is, but what they've gone to the International Fund for is a larger sum of money for the overall development of Lazar Park, as opposed to what this was originally.
Sorry, Worship. So the allocation here was to do with an upgrade of the kitchen as well. So quite a large proportion of the funding was allocated towards it. Bear in mind, councillors, they came back as the submission asked for another 200,000 on top of this as well. So they're reliant on that 200,000 still being available, which councillors will resolve not to proceed with. And we have to have this completed by December as a deadline. There's too many unknowns in terms of potential funding to us to guarantee that they can actually succeed. We wrote to Lions quite clearly early in the year asking for them to provide an update, which they failed to do on a number of occasions. We met them several times to talk this through. Once again, they couldn't commit to completing the job in full as per the request. So we have been working with them. We haven't been keeping them in isolation. We've talked to their presidents and obviously their other parties within the Lions. The issue was the quote they received was significantly more than the original estimate they received. That's the difference. If it was exactly that the builder came along and did it for the quote he provided originally, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. It would have been done.
I understand that, and I'm pleased to hear that this was not a case of Region Theatre where the council talked about them rather than to regarding the funding. But in this case, you have talked directly to the Lions Club, which is good. However, I do think that they ought to be given the opportunity to seek another tender. I mean, we know that they only got one tender, but that was local. Did they even try and bring us builders, for instance? So we don't know. They could bring that cost right down from, instead of being doubled, could come right back and give them the opportunity to get that funding from Lions International.
I do know, Your Worship, that they worked with the person that did tender to try and see if there's any way that that price could be reduced. And obviously,
No comment on that. However, even if we were to give them an extra month, go to DIA and say that in this particular project, the Lions are applying to Lions International for finance to bridge the funding gap, which will give them the chance, and I'm sure DIA won't be so hard-nosed that they'll come back and they'll say, no. You spend that money somewhere else or you're going to lose it in December. We're only in almost June. There is time.
Councillor Burton,
Through
can
Your
I
Worship,
clarify some information here?
just to clarify, I had a phone call from the Lions Club president early this morning, and he is currently in negotiations with Lotteries DIA around repurposing the current funding to just strengthen the wall. That will fall over if this Better Off funding is pulled, but the Better Off funding was for the strengthening and civil defence, so that would need to be renegotiated.
just to clarify, the wall is not non-compliant.
No, but council did identify it as earthquake prone.
But as it is today, the whole wall is fit for purpose for the use it's required to do. So there's no issue with the building integrity or a building consent issue.
Through Your Worship, that was, as Councillor Burden says, this all stems back from the council that made an incorrect assessment. And so again, it comes back to a question of fairness to Lions Club. In fairness, they went down the track of remediating that wall, started that process, and then find out from the council, actually, it's not earthquake prone at all. And now, here we are threatening to withdraw the funding, whip it out from underneath them. I think it's unfair.
So, sentiment around the table on this, please, because we do need to move this forward.
So can you just clarify, you might be able to, so if it's not now earthquake prone, why are they still working on it?
Because they had an engineer look at the wall and do some work, some detailed inspection of the wall, and the opinion is, yes, it is. Okay, it does have issues.
It has issues, but it's not been classified.
Okay, so possibly need to do it.
But I mean, if you know about it and you know about it, you're not going to say, oh, just because council's redacted that notice, it's now no longer earthquake prone. But it's a real mess.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Councillor, we did meet with the Lions Club back in December because we had concerns about the project being delivered within the time frame allocated and within the budget allocated. We got no confirmation that the project was able to proceed within the time frame and the budget. We met again with them in March. We specifically requested that they confirm that the project could be done within the allocated time frame and within the allocated budget, which they could not provide to us. So I do not believe that the project can be completed within the time frame. Whether they get an extension from DIA, I suppose, is a different conversation. But I do not believe, even if they were to proceed now, that project can be delivered within the time frame and within the contract that council has with Ground Infrastructure regarding the Better Off projects.
Also to clarify, councillors, it's still leaving the shortfall of the $200,000 they came to council requested for additional costs, which council was already denied them. So even though they continue with lotteries, get the lotteries, they still are short $200,000.
But my mistake wasn't that what they've gone to the Lions International.
Not for the whole total amount.
But for the shortfall, they've found themselves in since the council refused.
No, it's
the
over the above.
shortfall is only the balance between us not covering full amount. So they've gone to Lions for, International for the balance, and they've taken into account that council will give them $200,000.
Where do they get from lotteries?
International?
No, lottery. We don't know.
There's a negotiation going on with lotteries, and my understanding is lotteries are actually talking about a financial top-up to the project as well. So That hasn't been reported through official
And
channels.
as far as the replication to the International Lions Body, I'm trying to recall the conversation with the two members of the Lions that came and met with us. I think that was July or August before they would know.
Yeah,
They were
July,
looking
I
at their
think.
funding, so it's way out. Councillor Kessler.
How does that timeframe sit with the Better Off funding? Don't decisions have to be made by the end of June or the start of June?
Well, we need to reallocate what we need to reallocate now because we need to deliver the projects by the end of the year, by November. Also, just with regards to the scope, if Lions decide to change the scope, I don't believe that the Better Off funding allows for a change in scope. So we'll have to check if we can reallocate the Better Off funding to a change in scope at the Lazar Park, or if that's the direction they want to go in.
There's some very stringent boundaries with the funding, isn't there?
Just to highlight also, councillors, we've received strong emails from DIA that any surplus funding and the Better Off funding needs to be reallocated to water projects. This is, obviously, we've made it very clear from our point of view that this is all allocated funding. But there are a lot of councils that haven't utilised all of their Better Off funding and now been given direction to steer it towards water projects.
I'll just go up to Councillor Phelps first, please. Councillor Phelps?
Thank you. So if we were not to reallocate it and the Better Off funding doesn't go to Lions, it could, for example, go towards the Hokitika wastewater treatment plant and reduce the total cost that that's going to present to the ratepayer. Is that a possibility, Simon?
If there's anything remaining at the end of it, it can go towards water projects, correct?
Okay, thank you.
So conversation with this, we need to look to making a call here, please, everybody.
Through your worship, I think it's germane to bear in mind what Councillor Bird was saying, is that the conversations that are underway at the moment with Lions International, and particularly lotteries, is contingent on that funding from the Big Rock funding. If it's whipped out, then there's no hope of that lottery funding.
Do we have a month to put this back, to give Lions the grace of time to see where that conversation's going? I mean, that's the thing, at the end of the day, we're the ones that sit, as far as being the ones that have to report through and be compliant with the funding entitlements as well. So where do we sit time-wise?
We're pretty tight time-wise. The hope was to make the decision here and move forward with it. So yeah, it's a bit difficult, but
But it's doable.
Your worship, can I ask that Kate talks on this? She's been working directly with TIA. She understands the time frame quite well.
Thanks, Kate, for coming up and,
Yeah, so through the mayor, we probably wouldn't have enough time to buy another month, considering that last time we put a reallocation report to council, it took 3 months to get approved, reallocated, and then the funding sitting within that portfolio. So if we take into account 3 months from July, it's not enough time to deliver a project. So this pretty much is our last opportunity to reallocate funding within the portfolios. If we weren't to reallocate funding today within the portfolios, like Simon said, it would have to go to Three Waters. And then obviously we oppose the risk of those budgets, for example, Fox, that we've had that technical issue. Who did have to fund that deficit of the 40,000 because the funding would have gone to Three Waters. So yeah, unfortunately, this really is our last opportunity to keep it within the original intention, which was obviously community projects, not Three Waters. And unfortunately, a lot of these projects, they don't fall within many external funding criteria. So this really is a good opportunity to finish these ones off within this funding, because otherwise we don't have another opportunity.
and then we will have to find funding from some other source to fund those, yes. I'll go to Councillor Bird and then up to Councillor Phelps.
So, through your worship, Kate, the 3-month time frame you talk about, that work's already been done though, so it would just be pushing this report out a month, not you having to go back to DIA to get a reallocation approved, because that bit's already been done.
Yeah, no, it would be additional. So last time, for example, when we reallocated the swimming pool funding,
yeah.
Yes, it got approved at that council meeting, but the work behind the scenes to get it changed within the portfolios, how we claim the money and all of that, that took 3 months. So I then couldn't claim for the pool for a further 3 months. So if we took into account
So
this.
none of this reallocation work's been done yet. So this, after today, it's 3 months from today.
Yeah, so we'd be pushing that so from today, we got it approved, then I would be working to get that, that 3 month timeline compressed as much as I could to then start claiming. But I take into account a lot of the projects, like for example, the Fox Victorian is completed, so we're ready to claim the funds as soon as it's done. So in 3 months time, I'm just going to claim the funds and it will be done. If we were doing a project that was still ongoing, then we risk that timeline being pushed out past December. We don't want to get to December and not be able to claim the full 2.79, because at the end of the day, that money's gone.
So if we get to that point and we haven't claimed, that's it, then we have to fund that from somewhere else, which will be council's own reserves. Right, okay, thank you. Complication, that's good. Councillor Phelps.
Yeah, just sympathetic as I am with the Lions that they were under the illusion they were going to get something that they now may not. There are a lot of other private buildings in the district that serve a community purpose, whether they're churches or sports clubs or whatever else that are in need of repair. But to my mind, we've got a lot of money or demand on resources for our Three Waters assets. And if the outcome of this money not being allocated is that'll reduce the need to dip into the ratepayers' pockets now or in the future to pay for some of our water infrastructure, then I think it's preferable to use this better off funding to actually put into our water infrastructure now that the situation's evolved. I think our approach should as well.
With respect, Your Worship, $56,000 is a drop in the bucket of the $15 million that we're facing with the wastewater treatment plant.
Right, point noted, thank you. So councillors, we need to move this along.
Through the chair.
Yes, Councillor Beard.
I think option 1 is my preferred option. I think the Lions Club have had enough time.
So you're accept that the report be received and that council reallocates part of the better off funded community halls funding to the Ross Hall, Wirral Hall, and council to their project costs, and council also relocates cost savings from the community funding portfolio to the Fox and Harry communities as well. Is that correct?
Agreed.
Thank you. So with that, councillors, the recommendation is, as I just noted, you've all got that there. Support on that, please, of relocating the funding. We're talking about reallocating the funding to those projects.
Sorry, I was just going to say, is that a motion or can we discuss option 3, which is reallocating it to 3 water projects?
Option 3.
Option 3 infers $40,000 of ratepayer funding to cover the technical issue with Fox as well, Patrick.
Yes, so we've had a mover with that. So option 1 is the preferred option. Seconded by Councillor Manera, moved by Councillor Beard. All right, can I have a show of hands, please? All in favour?
Aye.
Yep, thank you. And negatives on that side?
Vote against.
We're abstaining.
Right, so we've got 2 abstaining. That's Councillor Bird and Councillor Gillette. Against, do you want those votes recorded against?
As always.
Councillor Phelps against. And agree it was Councillor Manera, Councillor Davidson and Councillor Casson. 3 versus 2. And Councillor Beard, sorry, so it's carried. That motion's carried on option 1. Thank you very much. And so while we're just closing off that, thank you very much, Anne and Kate, very much for that. Can I have a mover and a second to please resolve that the report be received and that we sit with option 1 as the preferred option? Move and a second to that, please. I'll be looking for those that have actually. Councillor Beard and Councillor Manera. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, team, for that, for the report and the clarification on points. Lynley, financial performance, April 2024. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. Through Your Worship, I present the financial report for April. I'll take it as read, and through Your Worship, I'll take any questions.
Questions for Lynley, please.
Through your worship, I just have a question, that's fine. I was just looking at the long-term debt thing, I always look at that. And I just saw it, May 24 is going to go up about another, in terms of forecast, June was going to be another $1 million go up. I was just curious to know what was likely to be happening around about then.
It's actually happening next week, but it will go up.
Through the chair, as we discussed earlier, we draw down the debt for the capital expenditure at the end of the year.
Right.
And that's the debt that we're drawing down for the capital expenditure at the end of the year.
Question. Paul. Did we hear it?
Yes, through your worship. So that would take the total debt into
31.8 million, but offsetting that, we have 3.5 million on term deposit.
And can I ask, what is the upper limit?
What is our boundaries?
Yep.
Our boundaries are pretty much, I think, stated in the first section here. It's based on interest on that. Then, if you have a look at the first section on the sustainability report. So we've got our interest rates to revenue and our interest to expenses as well. And we do also have an upper debt limit at its well.
So the upper debt limit is?
I haven't got that figure off the top of my head, but it's
is it in the vicinity of 50 million?
I believe it's more than that, isn't it?
More, isn't it? I can't remember offhand.
I thought it was about 80.
Yeah.
That's far too much.
We don't have to use it because it's there.
No, exactly. As I've said before, it shouldn't be a target, of course. But also as as I raised in the planning deliberations, we've got to be so careful with the debt going forward, given the huge amounts that we're facing. The $15 million plus, probably, for the Hokitika wastewater, the $8 million plus for Brands wastewater. This is only the start. And we have some big, this building, what, $7-8 million? Some big debts coming up, and so the dream time is over. And we need to keep our feet on the ground going forward.
And this will all be reviewed in the long-term plan, where we will have that forecast showing that long-term plan process.
Chair, I think that's to sustain, but it's your decisions what goes into the plan that drives the debt.
Is your finger up?
It is.
Right.
Two from me, Lily. One, page 77, the lovely round of descriptions we get in the other expenses, as always, more so a statement and a question. We're really seeing the effects of that through, will start coming through there with those numbers and things, which is we've been saying, but it really highlights the troubled situation we're all in around the country. More of a question, page 82, debtors. Debtors over 90 days, one of my favourite lines to bring up. We zoom to the bottom, grant debtors, $500,000, then we zoom down to the bottom of that page, 434,000 for the poll, that's now 7 months.
That was paid yesterday.
A great answer, because that's now sitting, that was 7 months over, and I was getting a bit concerned about that.
So will we.
Great result. I look forward to that coming off for the next financial report.
Any further questions for Lynley, please? No further questions? No hands up there on the screen. Thank you very much, Lynley, for that. It's greatly appreciated. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? We resolve that the financial performance report for 30th of April 2024 be received. Move Councillor Pearson, second Councillor Gillett. All in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Lynley. Right. Carl? Oh, Carl's there, sorry, Carl. Speed and traffic counting for Hans Bay Road and Openito Village. Next, Carl.
Good afternoon, councillors. So this came about from the last report to council on transport, and really is just a summary of what's happened in the Lake Canary and Okarito communities. An indication of where we can take following on from the survey data. So I'll take the report as read. And
Councillor Kesson.
Thanks for the report. Can I just confirm both areas are currently 30 km/h speed areas?
So Okarito is a permanent 30 km speed limit. The Hans Bay area, we do a seasonal 30, it's 50 at the moment.
So my maths on that says we've got between 31 and 42 or 44% of non-compliance with that 30 k's an hour, which to me probably says we've got a problem, which is compounded by the community telling us we do. So I think it's quite good we've got the recommendations to move forward with doing what the community have.
Yeah, so effectively, when you look at what we've broken it down to, the original count that we did Hans Bay had just under 24% of the traffic was exceeding 30 kilometres an hour. Keeping in mind though, in context with those speeds, 95% of the traffic were travelling less than 39. So whilst there are speeding, there is speeding that's happening, the volume and range of those offences is within still a reasonable tolerance of the speed limit, if you take that into consideration. So while
friends, with the risk of sounding like Patrick for a third time today, our friends next door would probably still ticket us if we got caught doing 10 k's over the 30 k's speed limit.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly enough, with the second count which was this season just gone, the behaviour was a lot better. I did notice there was a homemade sign in Hans Bay. Whether that had an effect or not, I don't know. It may well have done, but people might just have been a bit better behaved. It comes to case.
I think also too, I know Okarito, I've got my hand up for things that are responsible for, they've put a rope on the road to help control it, and we had cones out there as well, so needs must. I think while it's good having the data there, it doesn't give us the actual situation on hand at that time where you've got congestion of cars, boats, people and everything else there. The visibility is not great for crossing that road safely, and you've got a child population there which is quite significant. And 30 k's is too fast, and you get cars speeding up between areas as well. And it's the same in Okarito. When an extra rope was put out across the road and a cone was put there, the difference in the traffic's behaviour was unbelievable. And it clearly demonstrates to me the requirement of just that additional placement there to help manage it for those communities. So yeah, thank you for that report, Carl, and for agreeing to bring this back, because it's something that we've been working on and been struggling with for some time on behalf of these communities. So it's good to get it to this point where we can move forward on this and hopefully strike an improvement for those two communities. Councillor Burden.
Through your worship, Carl, thanks for the report, and good to finally hopefully wrap this one up. Just a question around the rubber speed bumps. What's the sort of difference to them in comparison to the current speed bumps at Hans Bay?
Yeah, so you're quite likely to get a better reduction in speed using the rubber speed humps as opposed to the asphalt formed ones. The asphalt formed ones can be quite easily driven over at reasonable speeds. You certainly notice it a lot more when you travel over the temporary ones. And in terms of a road maintenance perspective, it's easier also to, when you're resurfacing the road through there, there's less requirement on painting and
all of those other aspects, so you can pull things about residents. And if it's not in the ideal location when you put it in the first time round, you can move it around a bit and see what effect it has. So it gives you a greater flexibility in terms of what we can achieve.
And cost-wise on the difference?
Well, if you're looking at AC, you'd be looking at likely 3 times that. Right, and it's the cost of excavating it, forming it, and the materials associated.
That's good to know. Thanks, Carl. One more question just around the location. Can we make sure that those communities are consulted on the location and make sure that in the place they see them as being needed, not someone saying, "I don't want to speak about that." So I think the Lake Canary community I know are quite, they know where they need to go.
It can be quite a sensitive topic when we talk about the location, so it's definitely something we can work on.
I think, Councillor Byrne, it'd be quite nice to actually add that into the actual option in motion.
Yep.
That it is in conjunction with consultation directly with the chairs of those communities to ensure we get this right. And have them involved in the process. So I'm taking that, sorry, Councillor Neil?
No, I haven't missed it yet, but have we got any further with closing the road that goes down by the lake at Kansas? At the moment, they can just loop. And the idea was to discourage cars from driving down on that road beside the lake.
That's a dock road, so that's not a council road. So
Conversation with them.
that is something we can have.
That would be great. It's certainly wanted by the community.
Right. Councillor Byrne, last question.
Through your worship, more of a statement just around that road and the process. At that original meeting we had here in Simon's office, we were told that there would be some master planning work done with DOC. I assume that hasn't gone anywhere?
No, it hasn't. And working with Carl, the appetite wasn't there to have that conversation, considering budget constraints that hurry with the department. We can certainly pick it up again, and we have a bi-monthly meeting with the operations, and so we can make it again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Right, if there's no further discussion on that. I'll look for a member and seconder, please resolve that one report be received. 2, that council adopts to endorse the installation of 2 installation of 2 additional rubber speed humps on Hans Bay Road and 3 new rubber humps in Okarito Village. I'm not sure whether they're looking for 3. But, and the third point we will be adding to this is that staff to carry out consultation with the communities to the best placement of these speed bumps. Do I have a mover? Obviously, Councillor Burdon.
Sorry, can that consultation be prior to them putting them in?
Well, it will have to be.
Thank you. Sometimes they put them in and then they get consultation.
No.
Well, there is.
Right, mover, Councillor Burdon, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Neil, thank you very much. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. 2 on the screen. Thank you very much, carried. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Carl, for that. That's greatly appreciated. And those communities will be very pleased with that. It's been a very long work in progress, that one. Right, we will move on. We're pushing backwards on time. We are well over time, but we'll plod on. They're at the end now. So we'll move straight into the museum redevelopment, and we've got Lorraine as the museum director, and we've got Richard here as well as project manager. The floor is yours, team.
Inga mihi, your worship, the mayor and councillors. I just wanted to take a brief moment just to read out just a brief statement about what our vision for the museum, which is He Whakahaumaho Te Tangata, which is enriching today and tomorrow's people by showcasing the culture of the West Coast people who strive to survive. Developing self-reliance, adaptability and a raw, rugged optimism, we highlight the unique West Coast attitude to life. My vision, or my drive, is to create a museum that leaves a positive and enduring legacy. One that reflects local identity by showcasing the unique cultural, historical and economic contributions of Hokitika and the West Coast to the New Zealand's national identity. By engaging storytelling, using objects and narratives to tell compelling stories that resonate with both locals and visitors, within a vibrant and engaging space that creates an atmosphere that encourages exploration and interaction. That's my job. The natural wonders and heritage of the West Coast are the primary draws for tourists, and by promoting a new museum with fresh exhibitions as an attraction, we can encourage tourists to stop and spend money in Hokitika, thereby boosting local business. However, I feel rushing this project could jeopardise the quality of the final stages and undermine the work already accomplished. And I just want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the dedication and achievements of all the directors, museum staff and volunteers, both present and past. Their work's been truly inspiring and motivates me to address the issue of trust. The museum's reputation is at risk due to its closure and the delayed opening of the building and new exhibitions. And I really think it's crucial that council make public statements about the project to ensure transparency and prevent scrutiny and speculation in the media. Thank you. And if you have any questions about the Ngā Hokitika Museum redevelopment project, update report, please.
Thank you for that, Maureen. Right, questions, please, from anybody? Paul?
Through your worship. So, firstly, disclosure, and then a correction. So, a disclosure is that I am the Māori researcher for this museum project. The correction is that, I am not being paid $43,000, which is in the budget for that, because I've said from the start that I am not doing this for money. It's quarter, it's a donation. So I'm doing it for free. As for Ponua Pathway, it's the same. The kaupapa is for Poutini Ngaito, it's not for me. So the intention is that that will save that budget from that $43,000 out of that budget. So that's the correction that I'd like to make. The other point is that I do believe, though, that this is that this could be fast tracked with Shane Jones. I do not believe that another October 2025 is acceptable, and I believe that it can be done much sooner and much easier, cheaper than what's proposed. And we can still have, with respect, we can still have a wonderful museum that reflects our heritage. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's reflecting our heritage. Our heritage as West Coasters, our heritage as Poutini Ngaito. That's what the museum is about. It's not about Te Papa and anything. It is simply about giving us a place of pride for our past. And I do believe that it can be done much simpler. A project that was put to councils in, I think it's February.
Shall I just answer the first two questions before we... The first question that's already noted was Tēnei te mihi for kohaere your the amount for the museum Māori researcher. But until we sign a contract that notes those changes, until we have a signed contract, that has to stay in the budget. As soon as that contract and those contractual details are noted and signed, it has to stay within the budget.
Okay, with respect, the it's not a change because it's what I said from the start. So it's not a change. Anyway, so that's the contract issue. In February, I think it was, the project was outlined to councillors. March, yeah. However, that was a closed workshop. That wasn't an open meeting. And this is the meeting at the museum.
Sorry, December, sorry.
December.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
December.
Yeah, and so that's when the councils had the opportunity to see what was proposed. And it was subsequent to that, of course, that we then found out what the blowout is with the rates, etc. So the landscape has changed considerably. I have said before, but I'll repeat it, that the museum can be reopened with those wonderful exhibits that we had in there under Julie Bradshaw. The gold dredge, the whitebait displays, and there are so many displays and exhibitions that are just sitting there, and they
Well, they're not sitting there, they no longer exist. Before I got here, the building was empty to make it available for earthquake strengthening. And some of those information boards, there was just nowhere to store them, so they've been disposed of. Not the objects, but to put them back up, there's actually takes more than just to reinstall stuff. That takes a lot of time. So the exhibition at Waitara, that's a 3.5, 4 month job to do that. That's what I do. That's my job.
4 months.
4 months, because our team, this is not their BAU. The team that I've had doing this, their jobs are to do research inquiries and object inquiries, to curate the exhibitions. That means you're pulling them out, you're preparing them, you're writing statements, and you're actually doing the condition, preparation and display organisation of an exhibition. So that it can't just happen like that. Nothing happens like that. Just want to clarify that. Make that very clear that exhibitions you just can't put stuff back in. And why? Why would you do that to a gorgeous building that you've spent so much money on?
Because it's going to cost ratepayers another $600,000.
And it can get paid off if we can promote the space as a refreshed museum to tourists coming, and another reason for them to stop and stay.
It's not only, with respect, Your Worship, it's not only about tourists, it's about us.
Yes, first and foremost.
It's about us.
And you deserve it as well.
And voting my toes. It's not about tourists.
No, but the residents deserve a refreshed museum as well that is truly reflective. And it has many voices, because it was a very one voice view within that museum. And that needs to change.
There's still 1.2 million to go on finishing the project, with doors going in, and the fit outs that are still there to do. It's a huge amount of work. I see that you're saying it could be open by May next year. And when I asked why the walls haven't been painted, I was told they can't be painted until the layout's been decided on, and that will determine where the lighting's put and what paint's used, etc., etc. If you come back to us in March and say, actually, we've just knocked off that 1.2 million, we need another 700,000 to finish the job, there will not be 700,000 to finish the job, and we will have a dead duck sitting there with the doors still closed, going into 9 months after they originally shut.
I'm not too sure where the 2 millions come from, but
You've got 1.2 on the figures here in your report,
yes,
and it's already cost 2.4 million.
Right, before we, yes. Well, I think that Richard's done a really good job in actually laying out the costs of the job, and that our main goal is to stay within scope, budget scope. We wouldn't come back with a blowout.
So with those changes, structural changes, you want to do?
I'd put a point on there in terms of the budget blowout. If we look at Appendix 2, we've got 2 items on the second page of Appendix 2 with committed to virtually the cost and dates. One being automatic doors, which is, in my maths, bang on 3 times over the estimated cost. and another being lighting supply, which is 2.25% over the estimate. We sit here around the table having had to go to the public cap in hand a few times on other projects, and we see the two items in there that actually have money committed to them already.
That's not value in projects to have provisional sums or estimates within there that are either within or over. Some will come under, some will be over or under. It's part and parcel of construction.
Well,
but basically, at the end of the day, you've got 1.2 million, and we won't go over that. I can guarantee it.
So we're sitting, and I understand construction projects as well.
Yeah.
We're sitting, the only two things we've got lines that have been improved on from estimates, and I 100% get estimates go wrong. We're looking at over two on one line item, over 3 times increase on the other item. Yeah. We have no cost in there. So if you respect where we're sitting and the point we're raising here, that is obviously a concern.
Yes. The potential savings we've got on architectural has come down from 100 to 50,000 because we've treated it in a different format, a different way, because of the experience of the person we've taken on board, or Marines taken on board. So as I said, there's swings and roundabouts. That's why we have a cost to date and a cost to complete. Similar to stage 2 of the pool. With stage 2 of the pool, we came in basically under budget or right on the budget. There were swings and roundabouts during that period, that process, but at the end of the day, it's the overall budget we're working to. So the doors I can explain, because we've had to have a heritage impact assessment done. The design of those doors has to be installed completely independent from the heritage fabric of the building, which means we've had to double it, basically with glazed panels above. So there's reasoning behind it, and as we go through the project, that will happen. But as I said, my job is to basically keep it at the 1.2, and that's what we will do, because we'll not go over.
Your worship, you've got a few other people with their hands up, Patrick and John.
Right, okay. Councillor Neal?
Yeah, just before you said that we didn't think the rates was going to blow out by so much, we should have had a pretty good idea when the government changed that it was going, that increase was going to happen. It shouldn't have been that big of a surprise.
What's that got to do with the government? Nothing to do with the government changing the trade. That was policy of the Labor government, actually. But anyway.
The impact that it had on rates was because the government changed and people had to take off. And that's impacted our rates.
No. It was with respect, it was the change that was that the one change that was brought in, the 3 boards before they were left out. And we're paying the price for it now.
Anyway, let's move on and please keep the conversation back to what we're here to talk about, please.
So just one more point about that. We're not trying to hide the cost. We've got the estimates there, we've got the actuals. So it's completely open to policy. As I'm saying, you know, it swings and roundabouts until we get all the costs in. It's part of construction.
Right, Councillor Scully. Sorry.
No, I don't want this to become adversarial. I think you've got to, we see it from your point of view, and you've got to see it from our, we've got some challenges. We inherited this from the previous council, and we've got a hard job. We've just got to work out a solution that's going to work. And I think the original dream is just too grandiose for an environment, not diminishing the scale and the work and passion of our, but we've just got to come up with a workable solution, I think.
Phelps?
Oh yeah, just building on what Stephen just said. I mean, this is a lot of money that's gone into this museum, and again, this is only anecdotal, but the entire time that I've been on the council, not one ratepayer has actually said to me, when's the museum going to open? I think there's this illusion that there's this community outcry for there to be this museum, but frankly, I just think we're just putting so much money into it. I think we just need to accept the mediocrity of our circumstances. We don't have the rating base to support such, as Stephen said, grandiose museum. I think scale it back to the bare bones and just make do if we're going to have a museum at all, because it's well beyond what I think most ratepayers can afford. So I know that we're not really voting on any funding allocations or anything today. We're just receiving the report, but yeah, we've just got to, I don't know, get real, I think.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Beard?
I agree. We inherited it from the previous councils. and we should not be spending any more excessive money. It's just not fair on the ratepayers, and basically I think I agree with Patrick. We just need basic, get the doors open, and yeah, there can't be any more excessive money on that or going over budget. It's just crazy.
Councillor Neil? On the 22nd of February 24, council approved the budget timetable, etc. You can't just bring this back on the previous council. We've already had it come through and approved it. And this is my argument, Paul, it is relevant to the Three Waters. Without placing blame or anything else on either government, that's what's throwing the rates out, was the changes, rightly or wrongly. So we did know that that was likely to happen.
I think you'll also find, though, Councillor Mayor, there wasn't huge support around the table for this plan. It was more so that we had inherited something with a huge bill to it, and we weren't particularly confident about the direction it was going in. I know that was certainly...
So that was 3 months ago. I just don't think that's okay to pull a pin on it.
Well, it is what it is, and we are calling it accountability. So Councillor Manera was next.
We spent all this money because it was a historic building, and now you want to modernise the inside and put electric doors and rip walls out. There's no need for it. The country museum, electric doors, you've got a state-of-the-art environmental control system. You have to put automatic doors in there, otherwise it won't function.
I've got an idea why we put the council in there. Kill two birds with one stone.
Councillor Phillips. Sorry, Donna, I'll come to you next.
Yeah, just again, I think this whole thing of inheriting things from the previous administration or whatever is all well and good, but ultimately we're in charge now. It's our responsibility. We adjust our sail to suit the wind, whatever you want to call it. But you know, we're all here responsible for the council now. It's no different than buying a house from a former owner that didn't look after it that well, or a company that wasn't well managed. You take it on. It's entirely your responsibility to make good with the circumstances you find yourself in. So I think we've just got to, like I say, scale our expectations and just reduce the budget and cut our cloth and all of that sort of stuff.
Councillor Beard?
No, I just agree with Patrick. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I agree with you too.
And I think too, going back to the time when it was open, we had an exceptionally good team in there. We had a museum that served its purpose in the community that we're in. The tourists were happy with it. The locals were happy with it. The staff that in there were second to none, and it just worked. And we somehow got way off track as far as massive plans and God knows where we think we are. But you know, we are back reassessing what this looks like going forward. We just want the damn building open, and if it can't be open by this next summer to let the people in that aspire to get in there, my biggest fear is that it will go, and no matter how much assurance we're given, the budget will be pushed. There will be no more money left, and those doors will remain shut. And then we've got potentially $3 million, which is sitting there going to waste because the doors will be shut, the place won't be open, and nobody will be in there. Paul.
Through your worship, so just wanted to note, of course, that the museum that's going to reopen is a half to 2/3 the size of what it was. So bear that in mind as well, because we're not using the drumming hall, which was a big part of the museum up until the day it closed. It's not happening. So it's just within the confines of the Carnegie building. Secondly, just to clarify the dredge was the key part of that museum until it closed, and that hasn't yet gone. I know there's a proposal to move it up the hill, and I do believe that was a mistake. But that whatever happens with the reopening of the museum, it needs to be a key part of it.
Can I just reply? This is an update report. That's what was requested. And all the talk about budget cuts and the change of what can be in the museum, that wasn't part of my brief. And if you want a plan B, then we can go away and we can discuss that and we can come back to you with that. But I can't answer questions that weren't required from this report. And the report that you required in February was an update, and this is what we are giving you. If you want something else, we can do that too, but we need to go away and bring back a plan B.
I will make a correction there, Lorena. It was actually expected to have more information. I'm sorry, yes, and if you weren't had that conveyed to you, my apologies for that. There was certainly an expectation for a little more detail in there.
Your Worship, can I also just clarify quickly that I'm an absolute advocate for our West Coast heritage and history. And I want that museum to be the best and to reflect that. The last thing that we want, though, is to end up like Greymouth History House, which is absolute disgrace.
Closed, it is closed, and there was no.
That's what I'm saying. And that's a disgrace, and that reflects badly on the Great District Council, I'm afraid. And so that's the last thing that we want. We need to make this again this strong point of West Coast history that it was, and it can be done. It can be done simply.
And when I look at the budget here, I mean, screens on windows, I'm not too sure why we need screens on windows and automatic blinds. And the audio visuals, 30,000, the projectors 22. I mean, there's a lot of scaling back that could be done on this as far as showcasing what we've got. I'm not sure the significance of automated blinds in the building.
Because if we have blind objects that can't be exposed to UV, that those are requirements from other museums. And for our own objects too, we should be protecting them for the future. And that means you don't expose objects to sunlight and UV.
And to be fair, that's a bit like us quibbling with Carl about what level shingle you have in the underneath the footpaths and whatever it is. That's an expert, right? We're not qualified. But it's all cost, Jane.
It's 1.2 million,
it's cost.
You have to spend 1.2 million.
I understand the cost, but it's not up to us to nitpick through it. It's up to the experts to do that, surely.
Councillor Casson.
Lorraine, thank you for your offer of a plan B. I suspect you've read the room as much as I have, and it probably is a preferable option going forward. My math says 16 to 17 months between now and October next year isn't palatable. Possibly reading the room, $1.2 million of expenditure probably isn't palatable anymore. In terms of back to Appendix 2, we have 20,000 that has been invoiced or spent, and we've got 200,000 that's committed, leaving $1 million, give or take some cents. I suspect that's that in the timeframe of things that option B we would like you to explore if I was once again reading the room. Is that something you think you could bring to us in the June meeting, given that you now have the questions that have been asked and you now have politely offered to do such? Is that favourable by everybody around the table?
Yeah, that's fine.
We really appreciate some help here. We want to be good, but you see our situation.
Councillor Phelps will make this the last question.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Just, to build on what Jane said, I agree. We're not here to be quibbling about specific details or the type of shingle that Carl uses to build on her point, but we are here to decide how much money we allocate towards certain priorities on behalf of the ratepayers that we're working for. And if we set a budget and that's the scope and you work within that, then that's what we are here to do. So if we want to scale it back, I think it's well within our rights to do so.
Thank you. So following on from Councillor Cass's, do you want to record what he just said? Yeah, okay. So following on from what Councillor Cass just said regarding a report to come back in, Joan, covering the points that Council seeks to have, is everybody in agreement with that? I'm seeing heads nod. Thank you.
Just one thing is, can Paul offer his services to help out with Plan B?
He's a historian.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, so Paul was saying fairly simply to be done.
Right, well, let's not cloud what we're doing. Paul's already offered his time as a Maori historian for Koha, so that's a pretty impressive offering anyway. So going back to this, can I move and second to please resolve that one report be received? That the report be received with a full report to be brought back to council in June.
Yeah.
Sorry. Everybody in agreement to that? I'm moving the sector, please. Councillor Glenn. Sorry, Councillor Beard, Councillor Glenn.
Yes, yep.
Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, team, for that. Right, we are over the 2 hours of time. We've got one more item to do before we move on. So is everybody in favour of pushing on? Councillor Kesson, Councillor Verdon, very much. Councillor Pearce, everybody's agreeing?
So I hope we don't take an hit.
Yep. Right, so last item on the agenda with break is the long-term plan amendment estimated. Are we? But that's in confidence.
And there's also that question at the start, what is going, what's in confidence and what's not.
Sorry? I just want it, over time we've got guests waiting out here and they've been out there for some time because we are behind where we've been on band. So I'm really wanting to crack on with this part, to do this presentation because we may have to jump the gun and go into Develop West Coast presentation. Leslie, the floor is yours. Thank you.
After question this report about the long-term farm amendment estimated costs that the council is required to get. I hope the report is read, but one thing I will state again, just like I did last time, I cannot stress how much work is involved in an LTP and an LTP amendment. And we do not have capacity in the corporate services area to carry out everything we need to be doing over the next 12 months. Take your reports read and answer any questions.
Thank you, Leslie. I certainly support option one, but we will throw it over for any quick discussion on this, councillors. Any questions or points, Councillor Neal? Happy to move option one. Can I have a seconder to that? Oh, sorry, Paul, do you want to have a quick?
Just a quick comment on that. I mean, option one is sensible, I would say. I'm sure another couple of months also aren't going to affect things too much. But I do want to make a comment that it seemed that we didn't have any problem with getting it into the plan, but by crikey, we have a problem getting it out. And
I think we'll have
through the chair. It went through a long-term plan amendment, which was very, very difficult and a lot of work. However, it was not through an annual plan, an annual report process, or preparing for the next long-term plan. So the timing is completely off.
And also the time that you might have been aware of might have been different to what has already started to be working, so I'd like to
killing this thing is like trying to kill a cock.
That's the wicked people.
Honestly, it just, that's a front page tomorrow. It just keeps coming back.
It does, but we have taken it
we've got
and
it,
progressed it. So, Councillor Pearson.
Leslie, thank you for compiling.
Come on, order please.
Thank you for compiling the report and quantifying what an LTP amendment cost would look like. It's good for us to know for that. Should we choose to do things out of the process yard, we're steering down the barrel of in excess of $100,000. And I think obviously option one is the preferred one. Is a decision that we towards last time, that is the right thing to be doing.
It would just be part of the long-term plan last time. As I say, it's the timing of it, we did it ourselves, so the costs weren't as much. But do you want us to look at actually reducing the budget through depreciation, things like that?
Option 8.2, yeah, that was my follow-up. Yeah, at $146,770 for the next year. Obviously, there's money there that can be saved or not spent if we're going to sell it, dare I say it, as is where it is or whatever in another year's time. I think it's well worth looking at. Obviously, we don't want to go backwards. We don't want to jeopardise those who are in there currently utilising the space or ultimately what we have to sell in another year's time. But we also don't want to go and spend another $100,000 on something that we're not going to see return for.
Chairman speaking.
Don't waste any money. I was simply be it. Keep it watertight, keep it safe for people to be in currently, and they who decide to buy it can do what they like with it.
Yeah, that's right.
Through the chair.
Yes, Donna, this is Councillor Beard, sorry.
I disagree with the statement I'm about to make through general practice of council, but sometimes you've got to spend money to make money, and we need to get rid of that building.
I'm not averse to getting rid of the building, but we can't do it through a long-term amendment. And I will not have my team and myself burnt out like I've seen in the past. I have had finance managers sat at my desk, sat in my office with their head in their hands crying during a long-term plan process. And you're talking about us doing an annual report, an audit, a long-term plan, and a long-term plan amendment. I'm sorry they don't go into one. We run a really lean corporate services. We do. And we just can't fit it in. I'm sorry, we just will not do it. Something will have to give. So if you want to do this, something has to give. So that will mean a statutory breach.
Comments noted, thank you for that, Leslie. As far as where we're going with this, please, do we have a preferred option here?
Councillor Phelps has hand up.
Sorry, Councillor Phelps, will make this the last comment, please.
Yeah, no, thank you. Just, yeah, I'd be quite happy to see that building gone, but for the sake of a couple of months and saving a lot of money, and as Leslie said, saving a lot of grief, I mean, we've been presented with a list of options. We've got an idea of timings and costs, and we know when it's going to be put out to market. So, yeah, I think option one's as good as anything else.
Yeah, sounds like he's moving it. I'll second it.
You have moved that, Councillor Phelps?
Oh, I haven't moved or seconded anything all day, so go on, I'll move that.
You've just moved it, seconded by Councillor Casson. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, Kerry. Thank you very much, Leslie. So that was, we just moved? We moved to second the report being received. And the council resolved to include the sale of Pinky Bike building through the long-term plan 2025 to 34 process and include in the long-term plan consultation document. And in the interim of that also, that Leslie will ensure that we scale back on where things can be scaled back. Thank you very much for that, Leslie. It's greatly appreciated. Brilliant. Right, so I'm aware that we've got guests waiting out there. We need to be breaking, and we've got more to go. Right, we do need to have a question on I'm just trying to find it, for goodness sakes. Silence on organisational changes. We have had a request to have one section, one report moved to the public section. And because we're going to be breaking and going into confidential and moving that way, we need to deal with this now. There has been a request for the organisational staff change proposal to be put into the public agenda for the meeting, which means if we have a break, we'll come back and have to deal with that before we then move on to the guests. And or we break, bring the guests in, and then revert back to the meeting. Guests. Guests first. Do the guests first. Right. All right. Thank you very much for that. So we won't be talking about going into the public excluded section of the meeting just yet. Will be yes and no. I know. So, but what does council want to do? If they have been waiting for some time, do we invite them in now and then have a break, or do you want to have a break first? All right. So anybody that needs to go to the loo, please do.
Through your chair, I'll have to end the live stream, and that will be the end of the open part
of the meeting.
So we click on the other link, is that right, Di?
I can't go back.
Yes.
Oh, we can record it.
Yes, it might be live streamed.
Is everybody happy with that? Right, so we will adjourn this part of the meeting.
We are.
At 3:20, basically, 3:18.
Mover and second.
Moving a second to adjourn, and we move into the public excluded section at 3:20. Councillor Burden, Councillor Glenn, thank you very much. Thank you to our guests that are leaving. Thank you. You go, I'm going to